Hi everyone, Susan Storm here, and today we're going to talk about INTJs. We're going to figure out what those letters mean, what their cognitive functions are, and we're going to look at some signs that you or someone you know is an INTJ personality type. Let's dive right in. First, let's talk about those letters. When you're new to type, you might be wondering, what do N and S even stand for? If you are an INTJ, the I in INTJ stands for introvert. If you're an introvert, your energy flows inwards towards thoughts, ideas, and reflections. You need a lot of time to recharge, to get alone, to think your best thoughts. The world inside your mind is the most fascinating place for you. You can easily get lost inside your own head and even lose track of what's going on around you. As an intuitive type, that's what the N stands for in INTJ, you're more interested in the abstract and conceptual than you are in the tangible realities of life. You're more interested in meanings than you are interested in the details of what's going on around you. Envisioning a future outcome, hypothesizing a possibility, diving deep into what a concept really means, looking for a grander meaning behind things is your ultimate driving force, more so than noticing the details, the construction that's going on the road, the sensory details in life. Next, the T in INTJ stands for thinking. Thinking types tend to step outside of situations when they have a decision to make so that they can just see it as objectively as possible. They're very interested in making logical, unbiased decisions. For the thinking type, emotions can feel a little bit messy, a little bit untrustworthy, and so they tend to sweep them aside so that they can have as clear of thinking as possible. Next, the J in INTJ stands for judging. Judging types approach their day with a plan. They like to know what's going to happen. They like to be in control of their schedule. The day happen to their day rather than the day happening to them. All right, so those are just the basics. Now you know what those letters mean. Let's go next into the cognitive functions. The cognitive functions are like mental tools that you use to understand what's going on in the world around you, to prioritize information, and to make judgment calls as you go through life in order to choose your direction. So every personality type has 4 primary cognitive functions. There's the dominant function, auxiliary function, tertiary function, and inferior function. We're going to start with the dominant function. The dominant function is the hero of your personality type. And this is generally the most mature, easy function for you to access. It takes the smallest amount of energy for you to tap into. Another function might drain you a lot faster. You might get tireder trying to use it. Whereas the dominant function tends to feel really natural. Tends to feel energizing to use. Like when you are in the energy of your dominant function, you feel like you could keep going and going. And for INTJs, the dominant function is called Introverted Intuition, or NI for short. What is Introverted Intuition? Introverted Intuition is all about abstract associations. It speculates about potential implications, and it tries to narrow down possibilities in order to find the one most likely possibility. It is very concerned with predictions, but it's also concerned with abstract impressions and associations and symbolism and metaphor. Carl Jung, the founder of psychological type, said this about introverted intuition. It peers behind the scenes, quickly perceiving the inner image that gave rise to this particular form of expression. It's more interested in what's going on behind the scenes than what's immediately on the surface. He also said, introverted intuition perceives all the background processes of consciousness with almost the same distinctness as extroverted sensation registers external objects. So introverted intuition tends to understand what are the core motivations behind what someone is saying. They also notice symbols and metaphors and meanings in a way that's different from the ordinary person. Someone might be describing something to an introverted intuitive, and then instead of them noticing the exact literal details of what the person is saying, they might form a symbolic image of what the person is trying to describe in their head. That's like creating a picture or metaphor for what the person is going through. Here's an example. Imagine that a friend is talking to you, an INTJ, and they're explaining how they feel trapped in life, how they're not sure what direction they should go. They're trying to make all these decisions, but they feel really uncertain. You're picturing your friend as a lone figure in a sprawling, misty forest. The fog is dense, but there's a faint light in the distance, flickering. Around your friend's feet, the ground turns into a sticky, shadowy kind of substance, pulling at their shoes with each steps. Overhead, the trees are bare, their branches twisting into shapes that almost resemble hands, as if they're trying to hold the friend back. This image isn't static. It evolves as your friend continues speaking. When they describe moments of clarity, the fog thins and the light grows stronger. When they express deeper despair, the trees darken and the light dims. To you, this kind of visual imagery is something that follows you throughout life. Sometimes it's just very specific symbols. Sometimes it's a more evolving image, like what I just described. But you tend to interpret things in a very imaginative, visual, inner way, but you don't necessarily describe this to other people. Introverted intuitives like to understand what is going to happen in the future. They're very interested in where the last domino is going to fall. An introverted intuitive type is very interested in ripple effects and the implications of things. They're interested in knowing, if I do this, what's going to be the long-term impact, or if they do that, what's going to be the long-term impact. They're very interested in patterns and outcomes. And so INTJs tend to be interested in narrowing down possibilities to form a singular prediction. They understand that everything that happens has a long-term impact, has a long-term effect. And they can quickly sense what that effect is going to be. Introverted intuitives tend to chart the course and try to find a singular path or journey for their life. They like knowing what their ultimate master plan is going to be, and they like to follow that plan. It's very aspirational. It very much wants a singular purpose, a defining, meaningful vision for their life. Introverted intuitive types tend to be perceptive, insightful, and very earnest in their direction or their vision. Now, introverted intuition can have an immature side as well. If you're an introverted intuitive and you're not balancing your intuition with your other cognitive functions, which we're going to get into, then it can result in being very unrealistic and detached from reality. So introverted intuition tends to see the background of things. It's looking for the meaning behind something rather than what's on the surface. But introverted intuition, when it's really warped and imbalanced, becomes stuck in a fantasy world. It's so focused on the imagination and the abstract that you're out of touch with what's going on around you. Carl Jung talked about the unhealthy introverted intuitive. He said the introverted intuitive has little consciousness of his own bodily existence or of its effect on others. The extrovert would say reality does not exist for him. He gives himself up to fruitless fantasy. This is the introverted intuitive who has leaned entirely into introverted intuition, but hasn't given their personality the balance of other functions. And we need all of our cognitive functions to work together so that we can be as healthy as possible, so that we can have balance. Introverted intuition is very idea focused. It's very heady. And it's very abstract. Because of that, it needs the grounding of extroverted thinking and extroverted sensing to bring those ideas into reality, to become conscious of reality, and to interact with reality in a meaningful way. With that in mind, let's move on to the INTJ's second or auxiliary function, which is called extroverted thinking, or TE for short. So extroverted thinking is extremely important. It's the support system for the dominant function. So if we would think of the dominant function as the hero of the personality, the auxiliary function would be the mother or father inside the personality. It nurtures, supports, and protects. So this function creates balance. We were just talking about how unhealthy introverted intuition can become very ungrounded and detached from reality. That auxiliary extroverted thinking creates that groundedness and connection with reality. So INTJs tap into extroverted thinking when they want to take all those visions and insights and meanings and they want to put them to action in the real world. Extroverted thinking focuses on external systems, objective logic, external order, external rules. It wants to know how it can use knowledge and apply it to something to make it come to fruition. TJs root out everything that can get in the way of efficiency and effectiveness. They plan, map out, strategize, and organize to achieve their goals as rapidly as possible. They want the power to create and change systems in order to make their goals more effective. So this is a very proactive action-oriented, decisive part of the INTJ personality type. And some people, they're not sure if they're INTJs or INTPs. If you are an INTJ and you're using extroverted thinking, you have a strong desire to come to a decision. You do not like leaving things open-ended. You like to have things decided. You also tend to learn so that you can apply that knowledge to something in the outer world. You don't tend to feel like you need to know a little bit about everything just because you like knowing a little bit about everything. Everything you want to learn, you want it to be applicable, either to your intuitive leanings, like the things that you are deeply obsessing over intuitively, or to your big master plan. You want what you're learning to have a practical application for that. And that's something about extroverted thinking. It's very concerned with application. Whereas introverted thinking, if you are a thinking perceiving type, is interested in inner understanding and organizing all these different thoughts into different logical categories. Extroverted thinking wants to take logic and use it to make their dream become a reality. So there's a very proactive, pragmatic, decisive, action-oriented approach to extroverted thinking. It's concerned with using logic in the outside world to make something happen, to create order, to achieve an objective, to reach clarity in a decision that needs to be made in the outside world. So this is the INTJ's support function. And so it's very important that INTJs actually tap into this function, because this is what makes them the Nikola Teslas of the world. This is what makes them really create change, to makes them become those trailblazers that they're meant to be. If they just stay stuck in introverted intuition, while they might have a lot of really amazing, incredible ideas and insights, they may not do anything with them. And they may become so detached from reality that their insights lose their relevance, they lose their accuracy. Whereas when they're also balancing introverted intuition with extroverted thinking, they're testing their ideas in the real world, they're seeing whether they pass or fail. They're working with their hands, they're making decisions, they're making things happen, and as they go, they're learning and they're progressing as people. And so this helps their intuition to become sharper in the process. Next, let's look at the INTJ's tertiary function. This is called Introverted Feeling, or FI for short. So the tertiary function is one that does take more energy for the INTJ to use than the dominant function, but it still feels fairly comfortable and natural to them because it's introverted in direction. Introverted intuition and introverted feeling, FI, are the two introverted parts of the INTJ. They're the parts that are perhaps less obvious in the outer world, but they still feel very comfortable and natural to them because they match their energy flow. Introverted feeling is concerned with subjective individual values. It asks the self, what matters to me? What's significant and meaningful to me as a person? What do I want? What do I desire? How do I feel about things? Introverted feeling is very compelled to do what's authentic rather than what everyone else is saying is the right thing to do. It's very questioning of values that other people say you should emulate. Like if someone says, hey, it's good behavior to walk up to people and shake hands and ask them how they're doing, introverted feeling would ask, is that really good behavior? Does that feel natural to me when I do that? Or do I feel like I'm just doing it because someone told me to? There's a very skeptical leaning of introverted feeling, but also this strong desire to stay authentic to the self and to do what you feel is right, even in the face of adversity. So INTJs may not look like the most sensitive people on the outside. They tend to look a bit stoic, a bit aloof, very analytical and detached. But they're actually much more sensitive on the inside than people realize. They just don't really want everyone to see it. And their feeling side is very internal. It's not something that's just washing over their face as they feel things. As they feel emotions, they don't feel like they immediately need to express them or hash them out with someone else. They don't feel like they need to make sense of them with other people most of the time. So this introverted feeling is what can give INTJs a very individualistic streak. You might find that they have a different quirky style than what everyone else wears. You might find that they have a specific cause that really matters to them, that they really are passionately committed to. You might find that they stick up for the underdogs in a situation. Introverted feeling types tend to really care about specific causes or people, specifically underdogs or misfits. And so there might be a certain cause that really appeals to the INTJ that they really feel compelled to act in service of. But it's also about processing emotions. INTJs tend to need space and time alone in order to really process their feelings. They don't tend to call someone up and hash out their feelings with them. On occasion, this might happen in a really meaningful relationship, but in general, they need space and time alone in order to really parse out their feelings and make sense of what's happening to them. An INTJ may feel very strongly about a person or situation, but they may not show it on their face. And they may not even realize it's not obvious. As an INTJ myself, this happens to me all the time, where someone gives me a gift, for example, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool, but I don't realize my face is doing nothing to show my enthusiasm for the gift, but it actually is not showing anything. And so I do not seem very excited, even though it means a lot to me. And this is, in my own marriage, has been like a real struggle for sometimes, because my ESTP husband has a very romantic side and wants to have these really romantic conversations and things like that, and really affirming, expressive dynamics. And I tend to be much more stoic and robotic when I'm trying to express verbally, like verbal affirmations and romantic flirting and things like that. And I've spoken to a lot of other INTJs who feel the same way. The depth of their feeling is very internal. It's not something that's revealed on the outside. And Isabel Briggs-Myers said of Introverted Feeling that it's like a fur-lined coat. All the warmth is on the inside, but on the outside, Introverted Feeling tends to look very aloof and detached. So INTJs tend to look like they don't really care that much, whereas inside they're actually more sensitive than people realize. And this is something that's really important to remember, because a lot of people misunderstand and confuse INTJs as being these really cold, unfeeling types, when they actually do have very rich inner emotions. They just don't necessarily share them. And sometimes they don't even know that their inner feelings aren't showing up on their face. Next, we're going to look at the INTJ's inferior function, and this is called Extroverted Sensing, or SE for short. Extroverted Sensing is the part of the INTJ that actually notices what's happening in the present moment, actually notices details around them. It's the part of the INTJ that can stay tapped into the present moment rather than drifting off into a thought about the future and how things might happen in the future. Now, because this is the inferior function, it takes a lot more energy expenditure for the INTJ to use. They will wear out more rapidly when they're in the energy of this function, and it tends to be one that they feel a little bit more vulnerable and insecure around. So extroverted sensing is not interested in concepts and deeper abstract meanings. Extroverted sensing is interested in the facts, what's real, what's observable in the moment, what are the tangible realities one can experience in the current moment. And INTJs do tap into this when they have to interact with the outside world, but it is a little bit exhausting. It's hard for them to absorb a lot of details in the world around them, and many INTJs, in fact every INTJ I've spoken with, tends to get really overstimulated by busy, loud, bright environments, because it's hard for them to try to take all that in. It's exhausting for them to focus that much energy on all these sensory details in the world around them. But extroverted sensing also helps balance their introverted intuition. Introverted intuition is about the abstract. It is about patterns and concepts and deeper meanings, but extroverted sensing helps it to stay grounded by asking, what are the facts? What have we observed? What has our life experience shown us? And hey, maybe we should actually stay tapped into the present and enjoy this moment rather than hypothesizing about something that has nothing to do with this moment. So INTJs should give extroverted sensing a chance to breathe in their life. They should make time to stay present in the moment and just focus on their breathing through meditation, or focus on observing the small beauties of everyday life. When they give the extroverted sensing this chance, these little pockets of time to take the wheel, they do find that they become more grounded, more balanced, and have a more realistic, down-to-earth perception about life. And in turn, that makes their intuitive insights more accurate and more powerful. Now, what can happen, and for many INTJs, is that they do tend to repress extroverted sensing because it just feels more uncomfortable for them than their other functions. So many INTJs tend to sweep it under the rug because they'd rather stay in the world of introverted intuition or extroverted thinking or introverted feeling. And when this happens, extroverted stays fairly immature. What can happen to many INTJs is that when they experience stress, they try to solve their problems using intuition and thinking. They try to predict how things are going to go and come up with a very logical course of action in order to circumvent the problem. And so when INTJs first experience stress, they tend to pull away from everyone and try to get inside their head to try to conceptualize a solution. And as stress continues, they will keep trying to do this over and over again. And in the process, if the stress doesn't resolve itself or if stress is ongoing, they can wear out their introverted intuition and their extroverted thinking. And then when this happens, the inferior function can bubble up to the surface and take the wheel. And this can have a lot of unintended negative side effects. So when extroverted sensing takes the wheel, when the INTJ has constantly repressed it and left it in an immature state of existence, then it takes the wheel in a really immature way. And when this happens, the INTJ can become suddenly extremely reckless, impulsive, hedonistic. They suddenly become obsessed with sensory pleasure and these really impulsive, thrilling decisions rather than thinking them through. Normally, an INTJ thinks things through a lot and is very careful and looks before they leap. But an INTJ in the grip of immature extroverted sensing stops caring about all that. They might start drinking a lot. They might start overspending their money. They might start eating everything they have in their refrigerator or going out to parties and clubs and just doing things they would never normally do. They might start losing their temper and lashing out more reactively and more spontaneously. They feel really out of control. INTJs are normally very controlled people, and when they're in the grip of immature extroverted sensing, they feel completely out of control. So it can feel almost like an out-of-body experience. However, when INTJs have actually worked on extroverted sensing a little bit and have given it a little chance to grow and develop in their lives and have used it to balance out their introverted intuition, they have a more healthy relationship with extroverted sensing. So when extroverted sensing takes the wheel in situations where they are extremely stressed, it can show up in healthier ways. It can remind them to slow down and actually enjoy the moment and take in what's happening around them and take in the facts. An INTJ who has a healthy relationship with SE, who has healthy extroverted sensing, they might still feel that rush of impulsivity and recklessness, but they might channel it into something healthier, like going for a run or going for a hike, or even meditating and focusing on breathing. Now, this isn't to say that every INTJ who has a healthy relationship with extroverted sensing will always react in a positive way when they're in the grip of their inferior function. As an INTJ myself, I can say that there are times when I'm really stressed where I do know how to stay present and I do know how to do something constructive and healthy. Go for a run, go for a walk in nature, go outside and just take in the trees and the air and the birds and everything. That would be when I'm using SE in a healthy way when I'm stressed. But there have also been times when I have used it to binge eat food I shouldn't eat, or frantically clean up the house in a rush of energy, which isn't so bad, but sometimes that energy can come across as like almost losing my temper and like angry cleaning. There's usually a mix of reactions that INTJs have. Now, not every single time an INTJ is stressed are they going to have a grip experience. I've had some readers who are confused and think, I don't do that every time I'm stressed. A grip stress experience happens when stress is ongoing or chronic or really extreme, and the INTJ's normal tools are failing them. Because INTJs use introverted intuition so naturally and extroverted thinking so naturally, that tends to be the hammer they think is the right hammer for all the nails. And sometimes a situation comes up where that isn't the right hammer, but they keep trying to use it, and in the process they wear out that hammer, and then that's when extroverted sensing is going to bubble up. So it's very important for INTJs to tap into extroverted sensing from time to time by meditating, by staying present in the moment, by spending time in nature, by consciously focusing on the present moment and the details around you from time to time every day, rather than consistently staying stuck in your own mind, hypothesizing and conceptualizing. You need those little pockets of time where you just ask yourself, hey, what's going on around me? How do I physically feel? What are the details of the world around me? What's an experience I could give myself that would help me to experience more beauty or sensory enrichment in what's happening around me? It's eating your food and really tasting the food. It's being outside and really noticing what's happening around you rather than being lost in your head. It's driving your car and paying attention to the streets that you're passing and the signs that you're noticing rather than daydreaming your entire way home. So now let's look at some signs that you are an INTJ personality type. Number 1, you adjust reality to fit your ideas. You think of reality as the malleable part of life. If you have a vision or an insight or an idea, you feel like you can move mountains to make it happen. You feel like reality, you can conform it and bend it and mold it to your will to create this vision. Nikola Tesla, who's a very famous INTJ in history, said, The development of man has as its ultimate purpose in the complete mastery of mind over the material world. And INTJs very much have this idea that they can use their mind to master the material world in order to make their vision or their insight or their idea a reality. 2, you're very driven to complete things. When you start a project, you tend to not rest until it's finished. You're very single-minded towards that particular vision. And because of that, you really despise interruptions. One way to get on INTJ's nerves is to interrupt them when they're in the middle of a project. They absolutely hate being derailed or distracted from their main goal. 3, you tend to know about people without knowing why. You just know. Rather than seeing the immediate situation, you tend to look at and notice people's motivations, what's really going on behind the scenes for a person, the core cause of why they're bringing something up to you. And so you tend to be able to read people fairly easily. Now, this doesn't mean you can emotionally connect really powerfully right away or anything like that. You just tend to know what someone's about fairly quickly, what their ultimate goals are and their motivations. 4, you're on a constant search for meaning and significance. You're always looking to understand the ultimate meaning of life, the why behind everything. Why are we here? What's life all about? What's the deeper meaning behind why everyone's here? And you tend to run these kind of social studies experiments in your brain all the time, trying to understand why people do what they do, or why the universe is the way it is. You're always asking these big, deep why questions so that you can understand the dance of the universe and the ultimate meaning behind things as well as possible. 5, you're more sensitive than people think. You tend to have a very tough, aloof exterior, but you actually feel things much more deeply, and you have a lot of inner conviction and passion, and you put a lot of energy towards living in alignment with your values and with the things that you feel are right or wrong. And you just feel a lot more deeply than anyone would ever know by looking or by gauging it from the outside. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that after watching this, you have a better idea whether this is your best fit type or the best fit type of someone you know. If you'd like to know more, you can definitely check out my website at psychologyjunkie.com. I have a lot of articles about INTJs. You can also ask a question in the comments, or you can set up a coaching or type clarification session with me if you'd like more information about your type, or if you'd like help in narrowing down your best fit personality type. I would love to be able to talk with you. You can book a session with me on my website. You can subscribe for more videos. I would love to have you back. Thanks everyone. Hope you have a great day. Bye.